Let's talk about the district you're seeking to represent and why this seat is open such that you're able to run.
Yeah, so District 6 is a really big, pretty badly gerrymandered district. If you
Mm.
know Florida geography, it runs all the way from Daytona Beach up to St. Augustine on the East Coast, and then all
Hmm.
the way west to Ocala. So it has the
Wow.
Ocala National Forest inside of it, which makes it very big and spread out. The previous representative, Mike Waltz, has three local offices here, which is a lot if you kind of keep up with those things. So it gives you an idea of how spread out it is. It's a district that is 25% age 65 and above. So a lot
Mm.
of people in their retirement, over 183,000, and they're nearly all voters. It went very strong for Waltz in the previous few runs, but a lot of that was really due to a lack of support for the Democratic candidates running
Mm.
in this race.
Mm.
For the last three cycles, one of them didn't even have a Democratic candidate running, and the other two were unable to gain any kind of fundraising or traction or support from the state or national parties. The most money either raised was $34,000,
Oh my
which
God.
when Walt has 3.2 million, I mean, you're being outspent 100 to 1. The results are not, you know, they're not indicative of, the overall feelings of the district. They're indicative of the candidate's abilities to get messaging out.
And we've seen that in other states as well, where it's not that it's a red state, it might be a voter suppressed state or an underinvested state. What do you think is different about the current political environment that you are excited about your potential in this race?
Well, the first thing is, we're handling business on our end here. So, we put together a campaign that over the last, is it 4 months now? Since Thanksgiving, where we raised over $10 million.
Whoa.
So we've been able to take care of business on our end and make sure that we have boots out on the ground, knocking on doors. We hit over 25,000 doors a day. We have incredible volunteer phone banking and canvasser networks. We're on TV, we're on radio, we're in newspapers, we've got billboards, we've got signs all over the place. Like everyone knows we're here.
Mm.
And even right from the beginning, I mean, one of the first things we started hearing was, we started in the first month putting 100 4 foot by 8 foot signs out across the district. And people coming, calling, emailing, or coming up to us responding that they don't remember the last time they've seen a sign for a Democrat anywhere.
Oh my God.
So, they know we're here, they know we're live, and we've been able to really excite and engage this base.
Mm.
The other
So,
thing is a lot
oh
of
yeah, go ahead.
going into, what makes it different, the clip from that town hall or that panel that you were just sharing, there is a lot of people that are concerned about what's going on here.
Mm.
Very heavy senior, lots of veterans, and you know, the administration can try to message or spin all they want about the economy or about what happened to VA, but when they cut the first round of cuts of thousands of doctors and nurses, we
Mm.
had veterans coming up to us every day at every event to let us know. And this was within 48 hours of those cuts that
Wow.
their upcoming doctor's appointments, that their scheduled operations had all been pushed back 4 to 6 months.
Oh my
Um,
God.
one man came up and told us that he had been referred for treatment um, to a specialist, and the review for that, just to be approved so he could go out and get it, was pushed back until a December date.
Oh
Um,
my Lord.
so they're feeling the impact. You can't spin to them that, they're getting better healthcare or better service through the VA after these cuts because they
Right.
all felt it immediately.
Mm. Do you think that they feel it in such a way that it's going to matter at the election booth? One of the things that we have seen, and I think has really troubled Democrats in the past, in particular, is that there might be a lot of pop sentiment towards one political set of benefits that people desperately need, but when it comes to getting in that voting booth, we're not seeing the same people who had those concerns meet those concerns with votes that would allow them some level of power. Talk to us about why you think this time might actually be different.
Yeah. So, when you look at messaging from nationally from the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, they have done a lot better than us. And I think it's easier when, you're coming from their angle than ours, because, we try to actually message and try to help people understand. And federal
Yeah.
legislation is incredibly complicated. Some of these issues are incredibly complicated. Immigration, for example, is an issue that, impacts agriculture, and it impacts tourism, and it impacts, obviously safety and security, and it impacts, like, it comes, there's a lot of different areas that need to be balanced and considered. And it's not a very concise message. But when
Mm.
you just say brown people bad, like, you can get that message out on, Twitter or social media or Fox News really quick and easy. Um, so, messaging has been an issue in the past, and this is an area that has been neglected and has not really received a message. But there's a lot of people who are being immediately impacted. Donald Trump's executive orders and everything that came out of the White House. That fast and furious strategy that they took to try to, really um, dismantle and impact everything as quickly as possible. It feels like their strategy was to try to desensitize people, that so
Yeah.
much was going on that they couldn't care about anything. But what we found here on the ground is that, it's really been the opposite. Is that, there might be voters here who didn't care when he went after education, and didn't care when he went after farming, and didn't care when he went after women's rights, and didn't care when he went after the LGBTQ community, and didn't care when, but eventually it got to Social Security or Medicaid, and it impacted them. And when you impact everything, you're going to impact everyone. And so there are a lot of people here who are personally impacted. The other thing is, we have a strong independent MPA population of voters here. This district's 46% Republican, 27% Democrat, 27% independent, and MPA.
When you say MPA, can you define? Not
Sorry,
everyone is. Yeah.
MPA means no party affiliation. So they're registered voters who vote, but they don't choose a side. They're not a member of the Democratic Party. They're not a member of the Republican Party. So a lot of voters who, don't fully align themselves to one or the other. A lot of people who voted for Obama and then Trump and then Biden and then Trump. They tend to vote for change. And whereas typically an election this close, when you're still in the president's first 100 days, you wouldn't say that there's enough to want to change again. But I mean, he's done more than 4 years worth of impact and damage in a very, very short amount of time that,
Yeah.
people are feeling it, and we're able to get our message out to them,
Yeah.
to make them live.
866-801-8255, 866-801-TALK is the number. If you are a resident of Florida Congressional District 6, give us a call. What are your thoughts about what's happening right now? How are you feeling about the potential of this race? I also need to make a slight correction. I'm noting that we have two special elections on the calendar. There is a third, but that would be a third candidate that would be essentially be I'm sorry, that's a third election that has not yet actually on an electoral calendar, because the current occupant of that seat, though they have been nominated, and this is the seat coming out of New York, though they have been nominated for a different position, I believe, with relation to the UN, they have not actually stepped down. So that seat is still occupied. But I want to hear from folks who are in this district in particular, or in Florida generally. What are your thoughts about this special election and what's happening now? I'm seeing on some of the show chats, Josh Weil, who is here, candidate for this special election in the district. Give us a sense, because I'm seeing, Josh, that there are some folks in the area who are concerned about a lack of outreach. Talk to us about what your on the ground outreach plan looks like, and what you're doing to reach voters, particularly those who are in the non-party affiliated, the independents, and anyone who, quite frankly, has been negatively impacted by the current policies that are coming out of the White House. Give us a sense as to what your on the ground game looks like.
Yeah, so we're absolutely everywhere. It's like I said, it's a big district. We lose time in the car, unfortunately, but
Mm.
we are every day at events. Yesterday, we had an event in the morning meeting with retired union workers. We had League of Women Voters Forum in the middle of the day, and then we wrapped it up with a veterans forum at night, where we've been to chambers of commerces, and we've been to American Legions and VFWs, where, obviously hitting all of our Dem groups and Dem meetings. But we also have a lot of large events coming up. Later today, we'll be in DeLand having a community event with Killer Mike, who's coming down to perform and speak to people.
Huh.
We have some big names coming to draw out crowds. We have another one on Friday night. We have a concert with Patti LaBelle. We have a music fest in Daytona in between on Thursday night. On Saturday, we have our two new DNC vice chairs, David Hogg and Malcolm Kenyatta, coming down
Oh,
to
I
speak to
like both
people
of
and
them.
launch canvassers.
Yeah.
We have just a number of events going on to bring people out, trying to do a lot with music as well, because we want to build community. We want to have community out. We want people who might not necessarily come to a political rally come
Mm.
out for something else, and give us an opportunity to reach them, connect, and message.
I love that. I think that's phenomenal. I'm looking at the census report for your district, and I see that while according to the last census, your community demographics were about 83.3% white. There's a solid 11% Black or African
Mhm.
American identified folks in the district. In addition to the programs that you just mentioned, have you had an opportunity to build with any of the groups that are specifically concerned with the interests of Black Floridians? I'm thinking NAACP, the Urban League, perhaps even National Action Network. Are there those sorts of organizations a part of your outreach targeting as well?
Absolutely. We brought on a little over a month ago a team made up of really strong, incredible organizers from South Florida, who've been doing our engagement primarily in, the geographical areas where most of our Black residents reside, which are Daytona Beach, Eustis, and Ocala. They've gotten me on point and out to Black churches every Sunday. We've had a number of meetings and special town halls for them. We just had one up in Hastings actually as well last week.
Hmm.
Meetings with the Black pastors associations in the area, meetings with and they're on the ground working engagement, reaching out to the communities, making sure that we've got our message out there, and queuing up all the opportunities for me to come out and meet with people as well.
I love that. Now, when it comes to this seat in particular, because this is a special election, you are one of the folks who could literally help tilt the balance of power in the House of Representatives. Why is that so much more significant of an issue now, from your perspective, than I'm saying than it has been at any other point? Maybe in my adult life, I'm Gen X, so take that with a grain of salt. But it feels like there's a lot more on the line right now. From your perspective, how does that potential that you could be one of two seats that helps tilt that point of power, what does that mean for you as a candidate, particularly in light of the fact that you came to the political arena from the education space, and considering all of the threats against the Department of Education, both at the federal level and education policies at the state level? Give us a sense as to what that means to you.
Yeah. So, I mean, education was my big one driving me into this, because, understanding what the federal Department of Education means. It has an infrastructure that directly connects it to over 97,000 public schools across the country, and it provides direct funding to our schools, particularly our Title I schools, where we have, lower income families, less community support, and funding, as well as all of our schools for students with special needs. Um, you know, our state funding, which is incredibly low here, we have some of the lowest per student funding in the country,
Wow.
um, goes to districts, and districts reallocate. So even in some of our counties like Volusia here, residents know that, some schools get all the pretty new things and some schools don't. And this funding that comes directly to them is essential to make sure that we keep running. And honestly, for our Title I schools, it makes up more than 35% of our budget here, because percentages are bigger when your baseline number is smaller.
Mm.
So this is, to lose that funding if the Department of Education went away, because the funding would still be there, but ultimately there's no infrastructure. So all of that money would go to the state and gets completely
Oh no.
disconnected from these schools. And in Florida, we have Ron DeSantis, who spent 6 years, diverting and stealing every dollar he could to go to private schools and charters.
Mm,
This is going to result in school closures, school consolidations, and increased class sizes. So it is absolutely essential. And it's one of the parts of Project 2025 that can only come through congressional approval. It has to be passed in Congress.
right.
So by taking back the House, we're able to get in front of them trying to dismantle the Department of Education. We're able to get in
Mm,
front of them trying to, their attempts to make a federal abortion ban without exception for rape and incest. We're
right.
getting in front of them, eliminating FEMA. We're getting in front of a lot of the big money remaining threats to our infrastructure and our civil liberties that are on this administration's agenda.